Good evening and welcome to Newsfeed. Today is Tuesday, November 27th. I'm Sophia Kolozinski.
And I'm Angelina Breedy. We're excited to have you here watching with us tonight. Let's see what's happening in Ann Arbor.
On Monday, General Motors said that it plans to idle 5 factories in North America and cut more than 14,000 blue-collar and salaried jobs in order to trim costs. The 5 GM plants will halt production next year, resulting in the layoff of 3,300 production workers in the United States. The plants shutting down include 3 car factories, one of which is the Detroit Hamtramck plant, which produces the Chevy Cruze Compact, as well as a transmission plant in Warren, Michigan. Other factories set to close are in Ohio, Ontario, and Baltimore. President Trump is very unhappy about the announcement, as he vowed early in his term to increase automaking jobs and brought pressure on the industry to not shift work to Mexico and overseas. Although some of the affected plants could resume production depending on the outcome of contract negotiations with the United Auto Workers Union next year, there is not much optimism about the future of the GM plants.
After an 11-0 vote in the Ann Arbor City Council, officials agreed to release information about the location of lead components in the city's water system. Some residents have been warned to consider replacing water lines with new copper piping as a result of possible contamination. Following the events of the Flint water crisis, citizens are acting cautiously. They have been actively appealing for greater access to information about possible lead contamination. The vote Monday night came as a result of the Freedom of Information Act request filed by the Ann Arbor News outlet MLive. The city is required to make this information public by December 31st. City Council officials believe this is an important step for increasing transparency within local government.
Dwayne Haskins threw for 396 yards and 6 touchdowns as the Ohio State Buckeyes cruised to a 62-39 rout of the Michigan Wolverines Saturday afternoon in Columbus. Despite Shea Patterson's 3 touchdown passes, 2 of which came on fantastic leaping catches by wide receiver Nico Collins, the vaunted Wolverines defense, who came into the game with the best defense in the country, had no answers for the Ohio State offense, who amounted an astounding 567 total yards, more than 300 more than the Wolverines season average. The loss eliminates Michigan from college football playoff consideration, while Ohio State will play Northwestern in the Big Ten Championship this Saturday and hope the College Football Playoff Committee squeezes them into their top 4. The Wolverines finished the season 10-2, improving by 2 wins from 2017 with a bowl game still to look forward to. In his post-game press conference, head coach Jim Harbaugh reassured the Michigan faithfuls that, quote, "we'll come back motivated and make darn sure it doesn't happen again," unquote.
Now it's time for a short break. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream, that I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly, just to come back in a new disguise and be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Welcome back to the show. You're watching Newsfeed. Let's get into our national news. A survey of parents across the United States estimated that 1 in 40 children has autism spectrum disorder, according to a study published Monday in the journal Pediatrics. This means that the condition was reported in about 2.5% of children, representing an estimated 1.5 million children between the ages of 3 and 17. The parents in this study also reported more difficulties receiving the health care their children need versus those with Down syndrome or other behavioral disorders. The study reported that more than a quarter of children with autism spectrum disorder were taking medication for symptoms related to the condition, and nearly 2/3 received, quote, behavioral treatments, unquote, in the past year. Boys, children of single mothers, and households below the federal poverty levels were more likely to report an autism spectrum disorder compared with those at least 4 times above that income threshold. Due to universal screening recommendations, researchers and health experts are finding much more impetus to get families the help they need and advocate for improved screening, diagnosis, and support.
From the devastating wildfires such as those in California to the hurricanes that have demolished parts of Florida and Puerto Rico, natural disasters have been particularly brutal lately. Scientists say much of this increased damage is due to climate change. The 4th U.S. National Climate Change Assessment was released on Friday. The report describes the ways in which the negative effects of climate change are wreaking havoc across the country. It's difficult to attribute climate change to individual storms, but it is known that long-term shifts in temperature and precipitation are significant factors. Scientists now know for certain that, quote, Earth's climate is now changing faster than at any point in the history of modern civilization, primarily as a result of human activities, unquote. The only way to lessen the severity of these natural disasters is to take measured steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Mexican authorities stated that dozens of migrants will be deported after hundreds attempted to cross the United States-Mexico border on Sunday. U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to close the border permanently. The migrants say they are fleeing from their home countries in order to make a better life for themselves and their families. Journalists report authorities on the U.S. side used tear gas to disperse the migrants. Trump has said he has given the troops at the border the go-ahead to use lethal force if necessary, but no soldiers were involved in Sunday's confrontation. Mexico's Interior Ministry warned that the migrants' actions could have led to a, quote, serious incident, end quote, on the border. The ministry also states that since just the 19th of October, 11,000 immigrants have been deported due to the influx of migrants into the country.
Stay tuned, we'll be right back with some international news.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Oh my gosh, we only have a minute to get to class.
What? Well, alright, I need to go get some water from the vending machine.
I'm gonna be eco-friendly and fill up my water bottle.
Well, I guess I'll see you in class.
Alright. So fresh.
Ah, come on, I just need to get to class.
Welcome back to Newsfeed. Now it's time for international news. Approximately 87,000 women and girls were intentionally killed in 2017 alone. Statistics like these led many to take to the streets this past Sunday, November 25th, to march to raise awareness and protest violence against women. Sunday was the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, a day set aside by the United Nations to raise awareness for and fight against these acts of violence. United Nations Chief Secretary General Antonio Guterres stated on Sunday, quote, "Violence against women and girls is not only a fundamental human rights issue, but also a mark of shame on all societies," end quote. Violence against women is not limited to homicides. It also includes physical and sexual violence, human trafficking, child marriage, genital mutilation, workplace sexual harassment, and more. The hashtag #HearMeToo is being used on social media to highlight support for survivors of all forms of violence against women.
On Monday, after 7 months of traveling through space, NASA's InSight lander touched down on Mars. Upon landing just before 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the InSight mission sent the official beep to NASA that it was alive and well, including a photo of the Martian surface where it landed. InSight launched May 5th and is going to explore the part of Mars we know the least about, its deep interior. To get to Mars, InSight cruised 301,223,981 miles at a top speed of 6,200 miles per hour while being followed by 2 CUBE satellites. These satellites were the first of its kind to fly deep into space. The satellite spacecraft called Marco will try to share data about the Martian atmosphere gathered during InSight's landing. InSight will spend 2 years investigating the interior below the planet's surface.
Since the 2016 Brexit decision, Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May has been struggling to define how closely the UK should remain to continental Europe. Her stance has primarily been a middle-of-the-road one that has left many on both sides dissatisfied. May's own Conservative Party seems to be divided on the issue, while the opposing Labour Party has promised to vote against her current deal with the European Union. Should May's current deal be shot down at this point, the UK will transition out of the European Union with no real structure in place and have to deal with the chaotic aftermath. May is strongly urging Parliament members to side with her so that there is at least some sort of structure. It appears only time will tell what will happen to the UK after exiting the EU.
Well, that's all we have for you tonight. I'm Angelina Breedy.
And I'm Sophia Kolodzinski, and you've just been Newsfed.